That was fantastic. Just incredible. Thank you so much. Very special in that it's been, I told our in-person audience, it had been 444 days since we'd had an in-person performance. We've done some live streams, but it's just special to be in the room with you. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's wonderful for me to get to, I mean, it's a particular experience that there is no other like it, to just all be in the room together and experience it all at the same time. Screen, not so much.
Well, pure pleasure for us, but a lot of pressure on you being up here all by yourself.
You think?
Just you and the bass. So what's it like? Because you do a lot of collaboration with a lot of other musicians, but this is solo bass. Was it a breeze, or it came off great, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, it went fairly well. I think the problem, it's the hardest thing that I do. I used to more often like do a recital with piano, and I still occasionally will. And that honestly is much easier. And then most of the things, even concertos, are much easier, even if they're much flashier. Like I just premiered a new concerto in March, and it was 22 minutes long, and I only played for 16 minutes. And so, you know, I could like do some like really hairy stuff, and then I could rest. And I'd come back and do some more. And this is not like that, either mentally or physically. It's you know, you have to kind of be in a certain kind of sync, and a little bit of training, you know, just to be okay, to be synchronized for all the, like I say, the physical and the mental part of it.
So speaking of being in the right space, during the pandemic, probably you've done less performing and less playing than normal. And so did you feel like you had to build sort of your chops back up, get it back in your fingers for this performance?
For this one, yes. And interestingly, for the concerto, it wasn't a problem. This was, you know, took a lot of effort. And just like I described. But, you know, also I took a lot of time off from the instrument. You know, my 60-year-old hands have been punished, you know, and they, you know, tendons are, you know, I don't know how much longer they last, but they've been pushed. And so I gave them some rest. I've got so many projects going on all the time that I can work on just with post-production and composition, you know, coming due always sooner than I expect. So there was lots of productive things I could do, and also, you know, I love spending time with my family, and my son was home from New York during the pandemic, and so it was great, but yeah, this was maybe the official re-entry for me.
Welcome back. What can you tell us about this instrument?
Well, my father fell in love with it before I was born. It was an instrument that was brought to the United States in 1950. The label says Jean-Baptiste Gabrieli, 1769, and it's a unique and wonderful instrument. And my father, I guess I met it when I was 13. George Hofer in Savannah, Georgia owned it, and my father was a school teacher, and so was George. And George had bought the bass for $1,200. In 1960, my birth year, and my father was always trying to get him to sell it to us, and he finally agreed to in 1983. And you know, I wasn't pining for it; I was actually happy with what I had. But my father really, this was it for him. And he convinced me to get it, and he helped me buy it. And he was right. I mean, it's you know, it's opened up doors for me musically that the other bass would not have. And I still have the other one, and I have his wonderful instrument too. But this one has given me probably more flexibility than others would have.
So, do we have any questions in the audience tonight? Over here.
The bass is obviously a very physical instrument. Do you have any like specific self-care routine that you do?
So the question for those online was that the bass is a very physical instrument, and so do you have any physical self-care things that you do?
At this point, yes, but you know, mine's involved. I mean, I go and see a hand therapist, you know, a lot, and you know, I've got just different stretches I'll do. My problems are 95% in my hands. It's just my physicality, my particular physicality, and other people, you know, it can be different things. Most bass players have some shoulder issues. Mine have been a little more manageable. Everybody gets some stuff, you know. You know, I saw beginnings of it in my 30s, but yeah, then again, you know, the best part of the art is managing it. You know, it's wonderful that there's more to music than just, you know, physical dominance, you know, so that you have to retire when you're 30-something. You know, there's, especially with my broad interest, there's just a lot of different things I can do that bring me a lot of satisfaction. So, but yeah, I tend to address mainly the issues I have, and I do different stretches in the hands and different exercises that the therapist gives me just to kind of keep them as loose as they can be.
But everybody gets some stuff. Other questions?
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, back here.
First off, Edgar, I want to say thank you. For about 20 years, your music has made such an influence on my life. And the 7 Degrees of Edgar, the musicians that you played with, have pretty substantial. I've got a question. How is it, and I'm not sure how to frame this question, how is it that, how was it for you coming up in like a new age of progressive music, sort of stemming from Grisman in the mid-70s through Strength in Numbers and your work with Bela and Sam Bush, and that was a really special, it is a really special time for music. How do you feel, how does that make you feel that you were part of that?
Yeah, so there's a compliment and a sense of appreciation for what you've done for our audience member personally. But how do you feel about coming up through this just incredible collaboration of music, the musicians that you've been able to collaborate with, and what you've been able to do on the bass and the music they've been able to produce?
Well, I mean, I guess I just mainly feel lucky to have known the people I've known. I certainly, when I was 23, 24, I knew Bela and Sam, but it was very, one of the reasons I moved to Nashville was to work with O'Connor and with Jerry Douglas. And, you know, over time, you know, that became my closest circle of friends. And I don't have another feeling besides fortunate, you know. And I think, and really there's, music is always good. You know, there's always a lot of good things going on in different periods. You know, I'm, you know, completely, there's so many different ways I could go with this, but like, for instance, just even the other day, hearing a little bit of some of the live playing, like with Miles's quintet with Herbie and Wayne and Ron Carter and Tony Williams, you know, you would even say even luckier if you could, you know, to see that kind of interaction between people, that kind of communication, that kind of connection. And, or my friend Zakir Hussain, you know, the lifetime of connections he's had, there isn't a good period. It's all a good period. So, you know, I had some sense of purpose being involved with some of these people and some of the, you know, all of them really, but mainly fortunate, and fortunate to be a bass player, you know, and bass players get to play with people who play better than they do. And it's, I always try to teach the students that, you know, but if you can learn how to make the music feel better and sound better, you're going to get to play with people who are over your head, and it's going to make you better. So, and I've had exactly that shot.
In the second work tonight, the unfinished work that you shared with us, and you told us a lot about sort of the composition of the work. But what is your process when you're writing? Do you have sheet music that you write out on? Do you use a computer? Any software? What's your process?
What I aim to do is to vary it. I try to use every angle that I can, but I would say fundamental. And it's been different at different ages, because I started probably, trying to write music from the time we had a piano, which would have been the middle of elementary school. So at that point, I would just kind of poke around the piano. I never wrote anything on bass before that because I just couldn't figure it out. But piano was just more friendly. And then, through those kind of years, I would write more direct. But I think even as early as junior high and high school, I started like gravitating toward the page. And then, through 20s, I wrote some pieces that were halfway written on the bass and halfway kind of written in my head and halfway on the piano. In other words, they were three halves of a piece. And they, I think in 1986, I wrote my first kind of complete piece that was through composed and multi-movement, about 22 minutes. And it was a real door opener for me. It was a big success. And because it was such a big success, for the next 5 years, without realizing it, I tried to write that piece again and again. And so I kind of have learned from that. And even though it was always maybe my primary go-to, at this point, the primary go-to is to sit with a piece of paper, think of stuff, come up with ideas. It can be musical ideas, it could be a texture idea, it could be a form idea. You write some of them in words, you write some of them in notes, but you collect ideas, you kind of have a brainstorm with yourself. And, sometimes you're walking along and you get lucky, you think of something, and then you try to remember. And these days, if you do, you just sing it into your voice memo or talk it into your voice memo. But in the old days, you had to try to get to somewhere where you could write something down, and so you wouldn't forget it, even though I used to work with the theory that if it was memorable, then you wouldn't forget it. I was young. But now the process includes everything, from, having things occur to me or sitting at the piano or, least of all the bass, unless it needs to be a really bass-centric piece. The computer is very, very useful. These voice memos are really something. I mean, that's how, these days, a lot of the things I communicate back and forth with people I'm working with, we don't have to be together. We can send each other voice memos of just, talking, singing, playing, and get the ideas across real clearly. So that's a great collaborative thing. But the computer's wonderful. It's a little dangerous. I might have once or twice spent too much time on it. And when you do, what happens is you start writing pieces that sound fantastic on the computer. And that really, it usually means they don't sound fantastic with players. It means you start to make assumptions about things that are, not player type assumptions. So, but I don't know, that's a little hint at it.
So we feel extraordinarily blessed to get to hear you tonight, to be able to take in this concert. Next year, you're coming back with the Scottish Ensemble, and so any preview of what we might experience in that concert when you're back in Kansas City?
Well, I'm still waiting for the final word on how many are going to tour. They have a variable number. I think it will be at least as many as 14 people. It might be as low as 12. I don't know. It could be as many as 16 or 18. I'm waiting for that number, and this is not going to be, such a big deal to anybody but me. But I'm looking forward to, say they bring 14 people. I'm looking forward to writing a piece that has 14 parts and not, violin 1, violin 2. So that'll make it new for me. And I did a tour with them, I want to say 15 years ago or something, at least 12 years ago, and had a wonderful time. It was entirely in Scotland. And, we played the first movement of a string quintet, but a more orchestral sounding version with everybody playing. they just really brought that stuff of mine to life. So I mean, that's what I hope to see again. I'm going to try to talk them into, revisiting that quintet movement too. So we'll see. And and I know they've got stuff that they're planning on playing.
Well, we can't wait, and we want to thank you so much for everything that you put into tonight. It's a great gift to us, and we wish you the best, and we can't wait till you get back here.
Me too. Oh, I can't wait.
Thank you.